I never thought a simple ride home would change my life forever. But sometimes, the most ordinary moments hide the darkest secrets. And that night, what started as a routine Uber trip became a nightmare I'll never forget. It was a Thursday evening. In November, around 10:30 p.m. I'd been working late at the office again, trying to finish a presentation that was due the next morning. The building was practically empty by the time I finally packed up my laptop and headed for the elevator. Outside, the rain was coming down in sheets, one of those sudden downpours that makes the whole city look like it's melting. I pulled out my phone and opened the Uber app. The estimated wait time was 12 minutes, which wasn't bad considering the weather. A driver named Marcus had accepted my ride. 4.5 stars, which seemed decent enough. His profile picture showed a middle-aged man with a friendly smile and a baseball cap. When the gray Honda Civic pulled up, I double-checked the license plate against what was shown in the app. Everything matched. I climbed into the back seat, shaking raindrops from my jacket. "Hey there," the driver said, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. "You're Sarah, right? Going to Maple Street?" "That's me," I replied, settling into the seat and buckling my seatbelt. The car smelled like pine air freshener and something else. I couldn't quite place. Something slightly medicinal, maybe disinfectant. Marcus looked different from his profile photo. Older, thinner, with hollow cheeks and dark circles under his eyes. But people always look different in person than in their pictures, right? I didn't think much of it at first. We pulled away from the curb and into traffic. The radio was playing. Some generic pop music at low volume, and the windshield wipers were working overtime against the rain. For the first few minutes, everything seemed normal. Marcus made small talk about the weather, asked how my day was, the usual pleasantries. You exchange with a rideshare driver. But then I noticed something odd. We were supposed to turn left on 5th Avenue to get to my neighborhood, but Marcus drove straight through the intersection instead. "Excuse me," I said, leaning forward slightly. "I think you missed the turn back there." "Oh, sorry about that," Marcus replied, his voice remaining casual. "GPS is acting up with all this rain. I'll catch the next one." Fair enough. Technology glitches happen, especially in bad weather. I leaned back and went back to scrolling through my emails on my phone. But a few minutes later, when we reached 7th Avenue, another street that would have taken us toward my apartment, Marcus sailed right through that intersection too. A small knot began forming in my stomach. I looked up from my phone and paid closer attention to where we were going. The neighborhoods we were passing through were becoming less familiar. The well-lit commercial districts were giving way to darker residential areas with fewer streetlights. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice light and non-confrontational. "I think we're going the wrong way. My apartment is back in the other direction." Marcus glanced at me in the rearview mirror. In the dim light from the dashboard, his eyes looked different somehow. Harder. "Don't worry about it. I know a shortcut. Avoid all the traffic." But there wasn't any traffic. The roads were practically empty except for us. Rain doesn't usually create traffic jams at 11 p.m. on a Thursday night. My heart started beating a little faster, but I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he really did know a better route. Maybe I was being paranoid. I opened the Uber app on my phone to check our route. What I saw made my blood run cold. According to the GPS tracking in the app, we were heading in completely the wrong direction. Not just a different route to the same destination, we were moving away from my neighborhood entirely, heading towards the outskirts of the city. The estimated arrival time had changed from 8 minutes to 26 minutes, and it was still climbing. The knot in my stomach tightened into a full-blown panic. This wasn't a mistake or a shortcut. Something was very, very wrong. I tried to stay calm and think rationally. Maybe there was an explanation. Maybe the app was glitching, not his GPS. But as I watched the little car icon on my screen continue, moving in the wrong direction, I knew that wasn't the case. "Marcus," I said, my voice a little shakier now, "can you please just take me straight home? I'm really tired and I have an early meeting tomorrow." "We're almost there," he said without looking back at me. "Just relax." But we weren't almost there. We were getting further away by the minute. I looked out the windows, trying to get my bearings. We were in a part of town I'd never seen before, driving through what looked like an old industrial district. Abandoned warehouses lined the streets, their broken windows like dead eyes staring out into the night. The few streetlights that still worked cast sickly yellow pools of light that only made the shadows seem deeper. My hands were trembling as I tried to figure out what to do. Should I demand that he stop the car? Should I threaten to call the police? Should I try to jump out at the next red light? But we weren't hitting any red lights. Marcus seemed to know exactly which streets to take to avoid them. That's when I remembered something my sister had told me about rideshare safety. Always share your trip with someone you trust. I quickly opened my messages and sent a text to my roommate Jessica. Something's wrong with my Uber driver. He's taking me to the wrong place. Track my location if you don't hear from me in 30 minutes. But as I hit send, I realized I might not have 30 minutes. I was debating whether to call 911 when Marcus suddenly spoke up. "You know, Sarah," he said, and there was something different about his voice now. Colder. More deliberate. "I've been watching you for a while." My breath caught in my throat. "What do you mean?" "Your routine. Tuesday and Thursday nights, you work late. Always request a ride from the same building. Always go to the same apartment on Maple Street. Very predictable." The words hit me like a physical blow. He'd been planning this. This wasn't a random crime of opportunity. He'd been stalking me, learning my patterns, waiting for the right moment. "Let me out," I said, no longer trying to hide the fear in my voice. "Let me out right now." Marcus laughed, a sound that made my skin crawl. "I don't think so. We're going to take a little detour first. There's someone who's very excited to meet." "You?" Someone else. There was someone else involved in this. I felt around in my purse for anything I could use as a weapon. My keys, maybe, or the small can of pepper spray my mom had given me years ago that I'd never thought I'd actually need. But my hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip anything. The car turned into what looked like an abandoned parking lot behind a row of derelict buildings. This was it. This was where whatever he had planned was going to happen. I had maybe 30 seconds before we stopped, and then I forced myself to think clearly despite the terror coursing through my veins. What did I have? What could I do? My phone. I still had my phone and I'd already sent that message to Jessica. If I could just buy myself some time. Are you enjoying this story so far? If you are, please drop a comment below and let me know what you think is going to happen next. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps me keep bringing you these intense, true stories. As we approached what looked like an old warehouse, I made a decision that probably saved my life. Instead of waiting to see what would happen when we stopped, I acted while we were still moving. I pulled up my contacts and called Jessica, putting the phone on speaker and pretending to have a normal conversation as if she'd just picked up, even though it was still ringing. "Hey, Jess," I said loudly, my voice artificially cheerful. "Yeah, I'm in the Uber now. We should be there in just a few minutes. The driver's name is Marcus. License plate number," I read out his license plate clearly, "Gray Honda Civic." "Yeah. I'm tracking our route on the app. We're just pulling up to the warehouse district on Industrial Boulevard." I saw Marcus's eyes snap to the rearview mirror. He could hear everything I was saying. "What are you doing?" he hissed. "Oh, and Jess," I continued, speaking even louder, "you said you already called the police about that noise complaint, right? They should be in the area any minute now." It was a complete bluff. Jessica hadn't answered her phone. She was probably asleep, and no one had called the police. But Marcus didn't know that. He slammed on the brakes so hard I was thrown forward against the front seat. "Hang up the phone," he snarled. "I can't hear you," I said, still pretending to talk to Jessica. "What's that? The police said they're already on Industrial Boulevard? Oh, good. I feel so much safer knowing they're nearby." Marcus was looking around frantically now, checking his mirrors, scanning the dark streets for any sign of police cars. The confidence and control he'd had just moments before were evaporating. "You stupid bitch," he said, but I could hear the uncertainty in his voice. "You have no idea what you've just done." That's when Jessica actually called me back. My phone started ringing with her number, and I answered immediately. "Jess," I said, genuine relief flooding my voice. "Thank God. Listen to me very carefully. I need you to call 911 right now. I'm in an Uber with a driver who's trying to kidnap me. His name is Marcus, Gray Honda Civic, license plate..." I rattled off the information again. "Sarah?" Jessica's sleepy voice came through the speaker, confused, but alert. "What's happening? Are you serious?" "Dead." "Serious. We're in the warehouse district on Industrial Boulevard. He's been stalking me, following my routine. Call the police now and tell them to track my phone." Marcus was in full panic mode now. He threw the car into reverse and started backing, up frantically, tires squealing on the wet pavement. But in his haste to get away from the warehouse, away from where he'd probably planned to hand me over to whoever was waiting, he made a critical mistake. He backed straight into a concrete barrier that he hadn't seen in the darkness. The impact wasn't severe, but it was enough to deploy the airbags and kill the engine. Both of us were thrown around by the sudden stop, but I recovered first. This was my chance. I grabbed the door handle and pulled, but nothing happened. Child safety locks. Of course. "Let me out," I screamed, pulling frantically at the handle. Marcus was dazed from the airbag deployment, blood trickling from his nose, but he was starting to come around. I could see him reaching for something in the front seat. Maybe a weapon, maybe his phone to call his accomplice. I did the only thing I could think of. I climbed over the center console into the front seat, fighting past the deflated airbag, and reached for the door locks. Marcus grabbed my wrist, his grip surprisingly strong for someone who'd just been in a car accident. "You're not going anywhere," he gasped. But adrenaline is a powerful thing. I managed to twist out of his grip and hit the door lock button. Then I threw myself out of the car and into the rain-soaked night. I ran. I ran harder than I'd ever run in my life, my heels clicking on the wet pavement, my lungs burning, my heart pounding so loud I thought it might burst. Behind me, I could hear Marcus getting out of the car, shouting something I couldn't make out over the sound of the rain and my own ragged breathing. I ran toward the main road, toward the lights, toward other people. My phone was still in my hand, and I could hear Jessica's voice calling my name, asking if I was okay. "I'm running," I gasped into the phone. "Call the police. Tell them to come to Industrial Boulevard, near the old textile district." I made it about 3 blocks before I saw the most beautiful sight in the world, red and blue flashing lights. 3 police cars were racing toward me, their sirens wailing through the night. Jessica had done exactly what I'd asked her to do. I flagged them down, waving my arms frantically. The first car stopped, and 2 officers got out. "Are you Sarah?" one of them asked. "We got a call about a kidnapping in progress." I collapsed against their police car, sobbing with relief. "He's back there," I managed to say, pointing toward the warehouse district. "Gray Honda Civic. He crashed into a barrier. His name is Marcus." They found him 20 minutes later, still at the crash site, trying to get his damaged car started. When they searched the vehicle, they found zip ties, duct tape, and a hunting knife in the trunk. They also found his real phone, not the one registered to his Uber account, which contained dozens of photos of me taken over the past several weeks. Pictures of me leaving my office building, pictures of me getting into other Uber rides, pictures of me entering my apartment building. It turned out Marcus wasn't even his real name. His actual name was David Henley, and he had a criminal record that included assault and attempted kidnapping. He'd been using fake documents to drive for Uber, slipping through their background check system with a stolen identity. But the most chilling discovery came when they tracked down the warehouse, where he'd been taking me. Inside, they found a makeshift prison cell, a room with reinforced walls, no windows, and heavy chains bolted to the floor. They also found evidence that I wouldn't have been his first victim. The investigation revealed that David had been part of a human trafficking ring that specifically targeted young professional women who worked late hours and relied on rideshare services. They'd profile their victims for weeks, learning their routines, then strike when they were most vulnerable and least likely to be missed immediately. If I hadn't trusted my instincts, if I hadn't acted quickly with that fake phone call, if Jessica hadn't responded so fast, I don't like to think about what would have happened to me that night. David Henley was sentenced to 25 years in prison. 3 other members of the trafficking ring were also arrested and convicted. The warehouse was demolished, but not before investigators found evidence linking them to at least 6 other missing women from the past 2 years. I don't take Uber rides alone anymore, especially at night. I've moved to a different apartment, changed my work schedule, and I'm much more aware of my surroundings. Some people might say I'm being paranoid, but I prefer to think of it as being smart. The thing that still haunts me the most isn't the fear I felt that night, or even the knowledge of what could have happened. It's how normal everything seemed at first, how easy it was for a predator to infiltrate a system we trust, to use our own routines and habits against us. Marcus, David, had seemed like just another rideshare driver. Tired, a little worn down, making conversation to pass the time. If I hadn't noticed those missed turns, if I hadn't trusted that growing sense of unease in my gut, I would have ended up as just another missing person poster on a telephone pole. We like to think we'll know when we're in danger, that our instincts will kick in and save us. But predators are counting on us to ignore those instincts, to be polite, to give them the benefit of the doubt. They're counting on us to rationalize away the warning signs until it's too late. That night taught me that sometimes the most important thing you can do is trust yourself when something feels wrong, even if you can't explain why. Even if it seems rude or paranoid, even if you're probably overreacting, because sometimes you're not overreacting at all. Sometimes you're exactly right. I still get ride shares sometimes, but now I always share my trip with someone I trust. I sit behind the passenger seat, not directly behind the driver. I keep the conversation minimal and pay attention to the route. And if something feels off, anything at all, I don't hesitate to speak up. These services can be convenient and generally safe, but they're not infallible. The people driving these cars are strangers, and not all strangers have good intentions. We put a lot of trust in these systems, in background checks and star ratings and GPS tracking, but at the end of the day, you're still getting into a car with someone you don't know. The most important lesson I learned that night is that your safety is more important than being polite. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Trust your instincts, even if it means offending someone or seeming paranoid. It's better to hurt someone's feelings than to end up as another statistic. I think about those other women sometimes, the ones who weren't as lucky as I was, the ones who didn't notice the missed turns in time, or who ignored their instincts, or who didn't have someone like Jessica to call. Their families are still looking for them, still hoping for answers that may never come. But I also think about the power we have to protect ourselves and each other. That fake phone call I made probably saved my life, but it was also Jessica's. Quick response that brought the police in time. We're stronger when we look out for each other, when we take those late-night "I'm in an Uber" texts seriously, when we don't dismiss someone's fears as paranoia. Every time I hear a news story about someone going missing after getting into a ride share, my heart breaks a little, because I know how easily that could have been me, how close I came to disappearing without a trace. The rain has stopped now. It's been 6 months since that night, and I'm okay. I'm more than okay. I'm alive, and I'm grateful for every ordinary, boring day that follows. But I'll never forget the lesson that night taught me. Sometimes the most dangerous situations look completely normal, until they don't. And by then, it might already be too late.